My name is Kara Ellis, and I spent the last 4 years busting my back for Driefield Robotics. I wasn't just a number. I was the person who brought in multi-million-dollar contracts while still driving a decade-old Honda and skipping vacations to hit sales goals. Just last quarter, I closed a $2 million deal that single-handedly salvaged our team's year. But none of that mattered. I used one legally earned vacation day to interview with another company after years of being overlooked, and the next morning I was called into Lawrence Bennett's office. He's the kind of VP who wears custom suits, takes winter business trips to Miami, and acts like firing you is doing you a favor. He leaned back in his chair, smiled like a dad disappointed in his kid, and said, "This shows a lack of commitment to the team. No thank you, no warning. Just cold termination on the spot." As I packed my things, my coffee mug, a few pens, and a tiny cactus that somehow survived under fluorescent lights for 3 years, I realized no one even looked me in the eye. My manager, Tyler, the one who repeatedly took credit for my deals, walked past with a quick, "Remember to turn in your badge," like I was a security risk, not the top earner on his team. 4 years. 4 years of skipped weekends, missed, family weddings, and chasing impossible quotas, and all I got was a cardboard box and the echo of my own footsteps. No send-off, no thank you, not even a damn handshake. I was erased just like that. I sat in my car for an hour afterward, staring at the building I had poured my energy and self-worth into. Not angry, just hollow. I wasn't a person to them. I was a profit line they could cut the moment I looked elsewhere. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't betrayal. This was clarity. The brutal kind you only get when the mask comes off and you see exactly how little you meant to the people you bled for. I thought I'd be furious. I thought I'd walk out of that building with fire in my chest and rage on my face. But what I actually felt was relief. A weird, almost weightless relief that settled in as soon as I stepped out of the revolving doors for the last time. For the first time in years, I wasn't checking my phone every 3 seconds or mentally rehearsing client pitches in the elevator. I just stood there in the parking lot breathing air that didn't feel like it came with conditions. I drove home in silence. No music, no calls, just me and the hum of the road, and the sudden realization that the anxiety that had become my shadow had vanished. That night, I sat on my couch in the same worn pajamas I'd passed out in after. Countless late nights working, and I called my parents. I didn't even cry when I told them what happened. My dad was quiet for a long beat, then said something that cut through the noise in my head. "They did you a favor, Kara. You needed to see who they really were." And it landed. He was right. I had spent years blaming myself. Maybe I didn't network enough. Maybe I wasn't loud enough in meetings. Maybe I didn't kiss the right rings. I twisted myself into knots trying to explain away every missed promotion, every time someone else got the credit, every time I was excluded. But it wasn't me. It was never me. The system was rigged to reward bootlickers and punish loyalty the moment it looked like independence. And I had played right into it. That night, I didn't polish a resume or open LinkedIn. I didn't hustle. I sat still. For once, I let the quiet in, and the quiet told me something I hadn't heard in a long, long time. I was worth more than how they treated me. Not just because of the money I brought in or the clients I managed, but because I was the one keeping the machine running while they took the credit. And now? Now they'd have to figure out how to replace someone they never even properly valued. Good luck with that. About a week after everything blew up, I got a message on LinkedIn from Vanessa Mills, a former client who'd moved on to Revelin Publishing. She asked if I wanted to grab coffee. "No agenda," she said. "Just catching up." I agreed because honestly, I needed a familiar face that didn't come with a side of betrayal. But when we met, she got to the point faster than I expected. Revelin was launching a new business development division and needed someone who could lead from scratch. No fluff, just build, lead, and grow. Someone with technical sales experience. Someone who could land whales and build trust. Someone like me. It wasn't just a lifeline, it was a damn reset button. I interviewed with their VP team the next day, and by the following Monday, I had an offer. Double what I made at Driefield. Benefits that didn't feel like a joke. A title that reflected the work I'd always been doing. It should have felt like the win I'd been waiting for. And for a moment it did. Until a letter from Driefield's legal team showed up in my inbox like a ghost from the past. They were accusing me of violating a non-compete agreement. One I had never signed. They attached a PDF with what looked like my signature, dated 3 years ago. But I knew damn well I hadn't signed anything like that. Not then. Not ever. The moment I saw it, something in my gut twisted. That wasn't just a corporate scare tactic. It was a setup. I brought the document to Revelin's legal department, and to their credit, they didn't flinch. "Let's get to work," their attorney said. And we did. We pulled out every onboarding doc from Driefield, every contract I had, every email chain around that performance review. Nothing mentioned a non-compete. But what we did find was a pattern: missing bonus payments, unexplained adjustments on commission payouts, metadata in old files that didn't match up. Documents had been altered, records deleted. Someone had been cleaning house after I left. And the deeper we dug, the more obvious it became. This wasn't about a non-compete. This was about silencing me. Driefield wasn't just trying to block my career. They were terrified I'd start pulling at the threads they thought were buried. Threads tied to money, manipulation, and fraud. They were right to be scared. Because I wasn't planning to fight, loud. I wasn't going to tweet or post a think piece or scream for attention. I was going to do what they never expected. I was going to document everything, gather receipts, build quietly, and then, when the moment was right, I'd make sure the right people saw it. Not for revenge, for accountability. Because you don't get to steal from me, bury my work, fake my signature, and walk away clean. Not anymore. I knew I needed backup. Someone who had seen the rot from the inside and wasn't afraid to admit it. That's when I remembered Kevin Blackwell. He was once the golden child of the Eastern region at Driefield, top performer 2 years. Running until he resigned out of nowhere. Word around the office was that he had a drinking problem, but I never bought that. Kevin was sharp, grounded, and the kind of guy who remembered your kid's birthday and sent thank you notes. I found him on LinkedIn working for a much smaller company in Virginia, and when I messaged him asking if we could talk about Lawrence Bennett and commissions, he replied almost instantly, "I've been waiting for this." We met in person the next day. He looked older, like someone who had been carrying weight no one else could see, and the moment he sat down, he said, "They destroyed me because I found the spreadsheets. Not just missing commissions, fraud. Systematic and deliberate." Kevin had discovered that Lawrence and the CFO had been running a scheme for years, skimming off the top of every major deal, laundering money through inflated project costs, even receiving quiet kickbacks from preferred vendors. And just like they tried to do with me, they buried him, planted stories about him being unreliable, fabricated a client complaint. He was gone in 2 weeks. But here's what they didn't expect. Kevin had kept everything. Emails, spreadsheets, bank records, even his original performance reviews before they were edited. He had encrypted copies of it all, stored off-site. I couldn't believe it. I took everything to Revelin's legal team and their jaws dropped. This wasn't a rogue VP. This was an entire executive web of deceit. We didn't waste time. We filed a countersuit and sent every shred of evidence to the Securities and Exchange Commission and the State Attorney General's office. Kevin and I weren't looking for revenge. This wasn't about personal vindication anymore. This was about exposing the kind of institutional corruption that ruins lives and pretends it's just business. I wasn't some bitter ex-employee with a grudge. I was a whistleblower with facts, backed by a company that actually believed in accountability. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone trying to climb a ladder rigged against me. I felt like someone kicking the damn ladder down and building something better in its place. The version of me that once stayed late to tweak one more pitch deck was gone. I wasn't just fighting for my own name, I was fighting for every person Driefield had quietly chewed up and spit out. This was my rebirth, and I wasn't rising alone. It happened on a Tuesday morning, quiet as usual, until it wasn't. FBI agents showed up at Driefield's corporate headquarters with federal warrants in hand. They took everything: servers, hard drives, even the backups they thought were off, the grid. Employees were herded into the lobby while Lawrence and the CFO were led out in handcuffs in front of everyone. Tyler wasn't arrested, but he didn't look far from a breakdown. He'd cut a deal with the investigators in exchange for testimony, which spared him prison time but torched whatever was left of his career. He was suspended immediately and blackballed quietly. No company wants to touch a guy who played both sides and still lost. The media coverage exploded. Headlines about corporate fraud, whistleblower lawsuits, and decades of financial misconduct were everywhere. Revlon didn't hide their involvement. They stood behind me with full force. And while I stayed off the record, the industry knew exactly who the source was. Within a week, Driefield's stock tanked. Clients pulled out faster than their PR team could issue statements. Class action lawsuits from former employees began piling up. The board resigned in disgrace, and the company was acquired in a panic sale for less than a third of its market value. It was poetic in the coldest, cleanest way possible. The empire they built on exploitation collapsed under the weight of its own lies. A few weeks later, I received a certified letter, an official court ruling awarding me $147,000 in unpaid commissions and damages. When the check arrived, I didn't even rush to cash it. I just sat there and stared at it, not out of greed, but because of what it meant. This wasn't about the money. It never was. That check represented every late night I stayed in the office when everyone else went home. Every meeting where I smiled while someone else took credit. Every time I believed next quarter would finally be mine. The victory wasn't in the payout. It was in knowing I wasn't crazy, I wasn't imagining the unfairness, and I wasn't alone. Driefield had gaslit hundreds of employees into thinking they were the problem. Now the truth was public record. And me? I didn't do a single interview. I didn't post cryptic victory tweets or throw shade on LinkedIn. I just went back to my job at Revlon, shut the door to my actual office, with a window, thank you very much, and got to work. Quietly. Powerfully. Knowing full well that the storm had passed, and I was still standing. A year later, my nameplate changed. Cara Ellis, Vice President of Business Development, Revlon Publishing. It still felt surreal sometimes, walking into my own corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows and a team that actually listened when I spoke. I'd built this division from the ground up, not just with numbers and forecasts, but with a culture that valued transparency and accountability. We didn't just hire talent. We hired people with battle scars, former Driefield employees who had been gaslit, underpaid, overlooked. They found something here they hadn't known they were allowed to want: trust. And I didn't take that lightly. Every commission was clear, every promotion was earned. I gave credit where it was due. We didn't just close deals, we built long-term relationships, and word spread. Clients noticed, so did competitors. But I didn't care about the attention. I wasn't chasing headlines. I was finally living what I had been denied for years: dignity, stability, and the chance to lead without selling my soul. That fall, I drove to my parents' new house for dinner. They'd moved closer a few months earlier after Dad retired. though he still read the business section every morning like he was waiting for a second act. We ate outside on the back deck. The air smelled like leaves and grilled corn, and for the first time in forever, I wasn't checking emails under the table. After dinner, Dad and I sat in silence, sipping bourbon. He glanced at me, raised his glass and said, "I'm proud of you, kid. Not because you won, but because you didn't let them change who you are." I didn't say anything for a moment. I just stared at the old Honda parked in the driveway. The one I'd driven through rain, rejection, and more all-nighters than I could count. "You ever gonna upgrade that thing?" he asked, half joking. I smiled. "Maybe, but I think I'll hold on to it a little longer." He gave me that knowing, "Dad, look, sentimental." I shook my head. "No, it reminds me of something important. That the fastest way up isn't cutting corners, it's building something that lasts." He clinked his glass to mine. "I'll drink to that." So we did. Me, the girl they tried to erase, now running a division they never saw coming. I never went back to Driefield. Never needed to. I didn't need revenge or closure or even apologies. What I built spoke louder than anything they ever said. And in the end, they taught me the most valuable lesson of all. That knowing your worth means walking away when others won't see it, and proving them wrong by succeeding with grace. Quiet, steady, unstoppable. If this story hit home or fired you up, don't forget to give it a like and hit that subscribe button for more real, raw stories just like this. Every click helps us keep uncovering the truth behind the corporate masks. Got a story of your own? Drop it in the comments. We're listening.